Thank you so much, Carlos, for being here with Spainguru today.
Thank you for having me.
Could you introduce yourself and share where you applied for the non-lucrative visa?
My name is Carlos, and my family and I applied for the non-lucrative visa in Panama. We're a family of three: my wife, Maria Victoria, our 3-year-old daughter, and myself.
What initially prompted you to apply for the Spanish NLB?
So after our daughter was born, we decided to leave Colombia, which is where we're from. And above all, we wanted a safe and stable place to raise kids. So our options at the time were Panama, where we were already permanent residents, the US, where we have family, friends, and also business interests, and even France, where my wife, MV, had been accepted to a PhD program. Spain wasn't initially on the list because even though MV and I lived here 10 years ago and we liked it a lot, we had very little knowledge of the visas available to us. So we ended up living in Panama for a year, which was very nice, but we were really missing the cultural experience that maybe a European country can offer, and also the child-friendly environment and the sense of community that we were actually looking for. And after a year in Panama, we learned about the non-lucrative visa.
I almost don't hear any accent in your English. You speak so fluently. You are also a Spanish speaker, right? You are Colombian and you are a native
Yes, that's
speaker.
right, Bruno. I happen to live in Canada for a long time, in the US for a while. So I guess I learned English at an early age, and I've been speaking English my whole life.
Carlos, when did you apply for the non-lucrative visa at the Panama Consulate?
Okay, we started our application in May 2023, and we actually heard back from them by June 2023, and we found ourselves living in Spain in August of last year. So it went very fast.
So now you just have gone through the process of renewal.
That is correct, yes.
What were the most important documents required for the non-lucrative visa application?
I think the single most important document in our case, and I believe in everyone's case, is the one that proves that you have sufficient funds to sustain yourself and your family during the entire duration of the visa, which is 1 year for the initial application.
What kind of documents did you provide, if you remember?
I must say that it's important to ask the consulate exactly what they need to see, because I have to say that I know for a fact that different consulates have slightly different requirements for the non-lucrative visa. This is something that's been told to me by immigration attorneys, all within the same legal framework. For example, in our case, in order to prove that we had sufficient funds, we only needed to show a letter from the bank statement that our balance in the account was in excess of a certain amount. I know that in some cases, they actually require bank statements going back several months or projected income, but this was not our case in Panama. We had such good communication with the consulate. We were sure to hand in exactly what was required, because we emailed them and gave them a copy of the actual bank letter we got from the bank before actually submitting the application, just to make sure that everything ran smoothly. And I would recommend that anyone applying for the NLB, try to get some sort of communication going with the consulate. But also, another very important document is the one that proves that the entire family is covered and has private health insurance. And I hear that this has to be, it's preferably from a Spanish health insurance provider, and that's exactly what we got.
How did you choose compliant health insurance for your non-lucrative visa?
Okay, the name of the company is Sanitas, and the only reason why we chose them is because we have Colsanitas in Colombia, and we had some experience with them. But quite frankly, if you really want to compare the different health insurance providers, I think it's valid to do so, because you're going to be on that health insurance plan for a while, and also make sure that if once you choose a provider, that the plan you're opting for is a plan that covers exactly the same thing that the public system uses here in Spain, because that's the one requirement they really want. They want.
It's not just about choosing the company, but also choosing the right plan that is compliant with certain requirements that mimic
Yes, that's
public healthcare
correct.
system in Spain. That is, long story short, it's like no co-payments, no waiting periods,
Exactly.
and full coverage. Repatriation normally has to be included. That it's a little bit depending on the consulate.
Yes.
And they need to, of course, you need to pay a full year in advance so that you get a
Yes,
certificate of coverage in Spanish
that
that
is correct.
that explains that you are fully covered from the moment in which you set foot on Spain.
That is correct. And you know what? In hindsight, that is the one thing I wish we had probably done a bit more research into, but we didn't. And thankfully, we got a good health insurance plan that is a Spanish provider.
And also, you had to get background check,
We
right?
did have to get a background check. Yes, in our case, it was very easy because you can do it online. We had to get a background check since we were Panamanian residents, so we had to get a background check in Panama, and we had to go in personally for a background check. And for the Colombian background check, you can do it online.
How did you get this medical certificate for you and your family?
Right. So we went to the local hospital in Panama, and because again, we got in touch with the consulate and said, "Look, exactly what do you want us? What do you want this medical certificate to say?" They were very clear about the wording, and we just went to the local hospital and spoke with a doctor. They have their own requirements in order to be able to sign something with a specific wording. So we got all the medical tests done.
So let's say that
it wasn't.
you used a template. You used a template provided by the consulate.
Yes, we did. And then the hospital or the doctor we spoke to said, "Well, look, if I'm going to say this, then you need a certain number of blood tests." And we did those, and they turned out to be okay. And we got the letter, and it was pretty straightforward for us. Yes.
In your case, you are married. Did you have to provide a marriage certificate?
Yes, I did. We had to provide both a marriage certificate and a birth certificate for our daughter.
Awesome. So, and you had to apostille them and sworn translate them as well, right?
Yes, we did. We apostilled them, and that was a pretty straightforward thing because, again, in Colombia, you just get something notarized and apostilled in the same notary public, and then we got it sent to Panama, and we just filed our application with those documents.
Do you remember about the sworn translator? Did you use a translator based in Spain? How do you remember how did you do it?
No, since all the original documents were in Spanish, we didn't need a sworn translation. However, I must say, when I opened a bank account in Spain, I did need to provide some documents, proof of where the funds came from, and some of the documents were from the U.S. And we did use a translator in Spain, so we just looked up, the first one on the list. And here I must say, we paid a lot of money for this translation. Probably not necessary to pay that much, but again, at that point in time, I was in a rush to open a bank account quickly, so I had to do it that way.
Yes, logically, if you provide documents in Spanish from countries where the official language is Spanish, you don't need to translate them. The consulates from Spain will accept those documents without translation. They will need an apostille, but you have to be careful because in your case, you were living in different parts of the world. You were in the USA, you were in Canada. Yes. Maybe some of the documents were not in Spanish, and you have to be very careful because if you're gonna provide documents from any of those countries, you will have to apostille and sworn translate them. Did you face any unexpected challenges during the application process?
Not during the initial application. It was very streamlined for us, and I attribute that to the fact that the Panamanian consulate was, very responsive, and they explained exactly what they wanted to see. Now, if you'd like me to talk about the renewal, that was slightly a different story.
How was the renewal process that you just did maybe a couple of weeks ago?
The renewal application is slightly different. First of all, the renewal application, most people renew their non-lucrative visa with the help of an attorney. The reason being is that an immigration lawyer is able to do the whole thing online, and you don't really want to do it in person because I hear it's a mess if you do it that way. So we did hire someone to file for us. All the required documents were pretty much the same, with a few notable exceptions. For the 2-year renewal, obviously, the immigration authorities want to see more money because you're renewing for 2 years. And in our case, and I think in most people's cases, they want to see a padrón, which is a document that proves that you're domiciled somewhere in Spain. And in order to obtain that padrón, you need to go to your local city hall with a rental contract or a letter from a homeowner in Spain stating that you live in that specific house or apartment. But I think, I mean, the padrón is not something that's really hard to get once you're here. So those were the two documents that they needed to see that, you know, were either different or completely new for us. Something worth mentioning is that the renewal for us, as I said, wasn't really straightforward as the initial application. We weren't accepted right away. We got a note back with a requerimiento, or an additional or an extra requirement, so to speak.
Yeah, when they need extra documents or extra explanation or clarification about the documents that you submitted.
More like an explanation, but it ends up being, you know, like just, you know, extra documents. So this time around, they did not accept an account balance in excess of the required amount, because that's what we put in the second time around. So what they wanted was to see bank statements for the entire year, which I guess makes sense, but it's not exactly what the law says. So we produced that, and then we were accepted and given a 2-year renewal in a matter of weeks.
Little funny detail is that you got the renewal, you and your daughter got the renewal approval first, but you had to wait a little bit longer for your wife.
So even though you apply as a family, maybe you know, a member of the family gets another immigration official reviewing their application. So yeah, it had been 2 weeks after my daughter and I had been accepted, and my wife, you know, still hadn't heard back from them. But you know, we had a good lawyer who wrote them a note, and then the very next day we heard back with my wife's confirmation, basically.
Your renewal was in Malaga province.
Yes, the renewal was in Malaga. Our immigration lawyer is from Barcelona, but that doesn't matter. You know, you have to apply apparently where you live.
How long did the entire process take from start to finish?
By sheer coincidence, in March 2023, we stumbled upon someone who had applied to the non-lucrative visa on a totally unrelated WhatsApp group. We weren't even looking at Spanish visas back then. And she talked to us briefly about the application process and how easy it was to apply. And I remember that one of the things that surprised me about her was that even though she was also Colombian, she happened to be living in Qatar when she applied. And she had filed her application through the Spanish Consulate in Doha. And so I said to myself, hey, we don't have to travel back to Bogota to do this. Just by showing our residence card here in Panama, we can do it through the local Spanish consulate in Panama. And that was very interesting. That was an interesting incentive because I really didn't want to be traveling back and forth for this. So basically, we got all the documents we needed. I handed in our application in Panama by mid-May, as I said. This was last year. Got a positive reply by mid-June, and surprisingly enough, we found ourselves living in Spain by August last year. So yeah, a total of 5 months from the moment we heard about the visa to the moment we landed in Madrid. The previous month, we didn't even know we were going to live in Spain. So it was all very surprisingly fast, and it was a good experience, quite frankly.
Well, we send here the kudos to Panama Consulate, as I only hear good things about them. Kudos, guys.
I'll let them know.
Yeah. What tips can you offer for navigating the appointment and interview process at the consulate?
So we didn't get an interview, but it's very important to ask the consulate exactly what they need to see. And here I must say that I know for a fact that the different consulates have slightly different requirements for the non-lucrative visa. And as I said before, in our case, in order to prove that we had sufficient funds. The only thing they needed was, a letter from the bank. It didn't even state the amount. I remember very well, just, the ballpark amount, which was in excess of what they required. But I know that in some other cases, they want to see other things like statements. This was not our case. And we were sure to hand in exactly what was required, precisely because we emailed the consulate. We gave them a copy of the bank letter, and we knew exactly what we had to submit before filing the application. So it's just something to keep in mind.
So all the communication with the consulate is by mail, and you don't have to show up there for an interview?
Right. So no interview. By email, they were quick to reply. They don't answer phones. Obviously, I don't think any consulate nowadays answers phone calls from anyone. But yeah, they were very responsive, and the process was very streamlined for us.
Not even if Pedro Sanchez calls them, they answer the phone. Trust me.
Not even if Pedro Sanchez. Not even Pedro Sanchez. That's right.
Were you required to prove your accommodation in Spain? And the reason for this question is because some consulates are pretty strict. They want you to show a rental contract in advance, before moving to Spain. Some other consulates, they just ask you to say what province you are planning to move to. What was the case of Panama's consulate?
Right. So in Panama, they just wanted to see what province we were planning to move to. And what we handed in was just a flight reservation. And when I say a flight reservation, I mean, we made a reservation. We didn't even pay anything because we were able to cancel it, after 48 hours. So we just showed them a flight reservation and a hotel reservation for a couple of days. Because, I mean, it stands to reason that if you're going to a new country, you're going to want to stay, in short-term accommodation or in a hotel before you actually move in. That said, I know that, some consulates do want to see a rental contract. Once in Spain, we thought we needed a rental contract when we applied for our Spanish ID, as some people had suggested to us. But even then, we did not need anything in the end.
So right now we're talking about, let's say, the official requirement. Once you get in Spain, you have officially 30 days to obtain your TIE card, which is the plastic card that proves that you are resident in Spain, that is valid for 1 year. So you need to get an appointment at the police station where you are living, and you need to show up there in order to do your fingerprints or get your fingerprints taken. You say that in that appointment, you didn't need to provide a certificado de empadronamiento?
Not in Malaga. Not for the first non-lucrative visa. NIE and TIE. NIE meaning the number, yes,
you get your NIE, your visa itself, right?
That's right.
The TIE card is the plastic card that you have to obtain once you get to Spain. So what kind of proof of address did you have to provide for the police?
At that time, I did have an address, because we actually did get an apartment in Spain. We got a long-term contract, and we had a rental agreement. However, we did not have our padrón. The padrón in Malaga takes about 2 months to come back or to be ready. So in that sense, we did have an address, and we said, look, we live here, but we really didn't have anything to prove other than a rental contract. And I guess they didn't even look at it. I really can't recall.
This varies so much between the different cities and the different police stations within the same city. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So now for the renewal, when you apply for the renewal, and this is when you apply online, they do want to see a padrón, which is, proof that you actually live somewhere, which means you have a rental contract or you're living at somebody else's home, and they write a letter, and they do have to see that document.
The application process was so fast. How did you prepare for the move to Spain once your visa was approved?
Right. So this went very quickly. In our case, we had a friend in Spain who actually helped us look for an apartment before arriving, which made things so much easier for us, especially because we were moving to a different country with a 2-year-old. Here, I'd like to stress that having a place before arriving might be something that many people would want, given the fact that the rental market in Spain, I hear, is extremely tight right now, so there are relatively few long-term rentals. And obviously Airbnbs or short-term rentals are more expensive, and it adds up over time. So if this is your case and you know exactly where in Spain you want to live, which was our case, we wanted Malaga for many reasons, and you don't want to be house hunting or moving around too much, I would strongly recommend hiring a relocation agency or a realtor who can help you. But if you're a little more adventurous and your situation allows you to do so, then you might want to travel a little and then settle for a specific location later on.
Which is something that you can do actually with the non-lucrative visa. It is a frequently asked question, since the consulates ask you to say where you're gonna move. People say like, do I really have to move there where I initially said, because I thought about changing location? Yes, this is something that you absolutely can do. You are not locked to the location that you pointed out initially in your application. How has living in Spain under the non-lucrative visa met or differed from your expectations?
Okay, so basically our expectations have been met 100%. So we never thought we'd adapt so easily. We never thought we'd meet so many expats from different countries in similar circumstances. We live in Malaga, and I'd like to mention that Forbes magazine said Malaga is one of the best places to live in the world for expats, and for very good reasons. I mean, the weather, the locals, how child-friendly it is. The city itself is so easy to get around, lots to see, well connected by air and trains to other big European cities. So basically, we're thinking of staying here for good.
What advice would you give to someone just starting to consider applying for the non-lucrative visa?
Okay, my advice is to just do it and figure out what you want along the way. Why do I say this? I mean, the application itself is very straightforward. It's not expensive. And if you meet all the requirements, and if you're willing to move to Spain and live off investment or retirement income, then this is definitely for you. And it is an easy path for you to get over here. Other considerations, I think, can be dealt with once you're here. And I'm talking about taxes. I'm talking about maybe purchasing a home down the road, etc. So just come to Spain, live here for a while, and take it from there. You might just decide you want to stay as well.
Thank you so much, Carlos.
Thank you for having me, Bruno. Have a good day.
Oh, and one more thing. Apparently YouTube says you're gonna love watching this video right here. I think you should watch it.